I think it's fair to say that we're on the precipice of something pretty big with Noble. And I'll talk to you a bit more in a minute about the drilling and where we're at the moment with the process. But certainly fantastic market conditions, great team, some great assets, and importantly, this is a primary green helium resource that we're chasing. So why is helium important? I know we all straight away think about hot air balloons and party balloons and so on, but it's actually a critical industrial gas. It's used in aerospace, especially welding, making fibre optic cables, all sorts of electronics applications, and most importantly, it's a critical input into the manufacture of semiconductors, and that's been driving a significant amount of the growth that we've seen more recently. We'd all seen the AI boom and what's going on there, and obviously they need chips. The great thing about it is, though, that if you look at that chart there, you can see that it's predicted to be a $1 trillion industry. The helium component of that is, while still significant from our perspective, is relatively small in the cost base for the semiconductor manufacturers, which really means the price is somewhat inelastic, which is very helpful. Currently, it's about a $5 billion market. This is just the wholesale market for helium, predicted to grow to about $8 billion by 2030. So some pretty robust growth, and certainly plenty of space for Noble to get its product into that market. Helium has been, I think we're in helium shortage 4.0. It's one of the things that's unique about helium is most of it's been discovered accidentally by people who are looking for conventional oil and gas. So for example, Qatar, who supply 30% of the world's helium, it's 0.3% of their gas stream. They obviously produce a lot of gas, and as it goes through the LNG process, the waste stream concentrates the helium. They then are able to separate that and liquefy it and sell it separately. But what comes with that is that whenever there's disruptions to the oil and gas side of things, the helium goes with it. So right now, obviously, as just mentioned by the last speaker as well, the troubles in the Ukraine are having a pretty significant impact. And one of the flow-on effects is obviously there's no helium coming out of Russia, but more importantly, Qatar, which supplies 8% of the world's helium through two LNG plants, 4% each. One of those is currently being bypassed, and the gas is going straight into the reticulated network into Europe. So overnight, 4% of the world's helium gone. But good for us though. Current long-term Tier 1 wholesale pricing is about $450 an MCF, which is pretty exciting when you think that conventional oil and gas is probably about $10 or $12 an MCF. Our finding costs, our production costs are all the same. So the margins potential is significant. And as I noted before, it's a critical input to a lot of these processes. They can't function without it, but it's a relatively small component of their costs. So they're happy to pay these prices. And in fact, earlier this year, there were a couple of short-term contracts, one for SpaceX, one for NASA, $1,100 an MCF. We have a very, very deep board. I won't go through all the details of everyone there, but I will talk a bit about Justin though, because he never wants to talk about himself when he's speaking. But Justin's the founder. He's a petrophysicist, has a long and deep history in the East African rift system, and he's been able to leverage the knowledge that he has, the previous work that he's done, discoveries that he's made, to work out where we're going to find helium trapped in the surface in Tanzania. And I think he's been able to bring a really disciplined and certainly great process. So we've de-risked this as much as possible, and now obviously we're drilling and we'll see the results. So the Tanzania is quite unique in terms of why it's prolific for helium. You have the 2 to 3 billion year old crust that's generating a huge inventory of helium through the radioactive decay of uraniums and thoriums in the crust. But what's unique in Tanzania is that with the East African rift system, the rifting, the heating, etc. that's gone on, it's actually released that inventory of helium out into the into the surrounding sands. And in numerous places in Tanzania, there's helium coming out of the ground in hot springs at 10, 12, 18%, just extraordinary numbers. But the key, and the reason where Justin's knowledge comes into this, is working out where's it going to be trapped commercially so we can exploit it. So we're chasing a play type called a basin margin fault closure, so where the sands are trapped up against the granitic basin. And so far, that play type has a 100% success rate in the East African rift system, not for helium, but for conventional oil and gas. There's the Tanzanian craton, which is the source for all of the helium. So right now we've drilled our first well in our first target, which is one of 10 targets within the North Rukwa Basin, which is one of 4 basins that we hold. We started with this basin because Amoco in the 80s shot 240 kilometres of 2D seismic and drilled a couple of wells looking for oil and gas unsuccessfully, but we were able to acquire that data, and it was a great starting point for us. We've obviously supplemented that with our own 3D, gravity gradiometry, soil sampling, etc. Our mean estimated recoverable resource in Mbalele is 15.7 BCF. And that might seem small in the scheme of conventional oil and gas, and it is. But when you multiply that by 450 US and MCF, that's close to $7 billion US worth of helium in the ground. And it represents about 9% of the 176 BCF that Netherlands Sewell have certified for us just in this one basin. So the preliminary results from Mbalele 1 were very good. We were able to recover gas to surface. Unfortunately, in the process of taking that gas from the canister to our Mini Rudy to test it, some air got into it, so it's contaminated. We still obviously were able to estimate what the helium concentration was, but didn't feel comfortable releasing that information to the market. The second canisters have gone off to a lab to be tested officially, and we'll get that answer. But it certainly appears to be in the range that we were expecting. On the upside, we had at least more than double the amount of net reservoir, 47.5 metres, and the Netherlands Sewell numbers were worked on about 20 metres. Innerbedded seals and sands, so a great trapping mechanism there for us, and outstanding porosity and permeability, so potential for high flow wells, over a Darcy of permeability in some of the sands. And the other thing, I'll get onto this. So well number 2 spudded a couple of days ago. The first well was 400 metres, tested those upper lake beds. We saw, as I say, gas to surface, where we were predicting that we would see gas bubbling up. When we intersected that, the gas was bubbling up through the drilling muds. And most importantly, in the bottom part of that well, so in the bottom 100 metres or so, we drilled through a very thick clay shalestone seal, which in theory is going to be sitting right on top of the main target for this program, which is at the bottom of the second well, which is 850 metres. It's about 4 Ks as the crow flies on the surface, and about 100 metres down dip from the first well. And the bulk of the 15.7 BCF is in the bottom part of that well. And I'll just show you a bit more info on that. So this is a snapshot of the 3D seismic, and so you can see at the bottom we've put those little polygons in there, and you can see some really nicely formed flat spots, which is indicative of a gas-water contact point within the subsurface. So if you can imagine, if you've got a glass of water and you tilt it over this way, the water still stays flat. No matter which way you're tilting the glass, you've obviously got gas sitting above it. So it's a great sign, and we're certainly very excited to test this system, particularly now that we have that other information about the seal that we encountered in the first well, that's sitting pretty much on top of where that gas is predicted to be. Obviously, finding it's one thing, turning it into money is what we really are all interested in. We continue to work on some commercialisation options in parallel with the exploration work that we're doing. Off-takers are very, very interested in what we're doing here because it's primary helium, so you're not going to be caught up in issues associated with the conventional oil and gas production. So yeah, we're well down the path in terms of talking to potential off-takers. We've made arrangements with Marriott for Rig 16 to stay on site. Hopefully, if we find what we think we're going to find in Mbalele 2, it'll be cased and suspended so we can come back and do a flow test and then set that up ready to be a producing well. In terms of then getting that helium to market, quite good infrastructure despite the fact we're in a fairly remote location. Blacktop Road most of the way up to Dar es Salaam. And the deal would be that we would produce the gas, liquefy it, it'd go into ISO shipping containers on the road out to port and then off, most likely up into Europe. Power grid runs right through our block. And in fact, Tanzania are about to commission one of the world's largest hydro electric projects, and so we will definitely be fully green. Just to give you a bit of a feel for the numbers, here's a bit of an example of so this is only talking about 12 BCF. At 450 US and MCF, the numbers are outstanding. So just finally, just a bit of a snapshot of the company. But I think the thing that's probably the most important to think about here is current market cap, 75 million. If we are successful at proving 15.7 BCF in this first target, which is one of 10 in one of 4 basins, and potentially it's worth $7 billion US, I think there's a fair bit of scope for share price appreciation given that market cap. The drill bit's spinning as we speak. We should be approaching TD by the end of next week, maybe the following weekend. Testing, results, etc. coming fairly shortly thereafter. So I think that's opportunity knocking.